hear him back there. All right. So, once the stream catches up, good morning, everybody. It is February the 29th, aka Leap Day. If you were born this day in 1936, you are finally officially 21. Congratulations, you can legally drink. uh, I saw this, and the reason why I mentioned that, I follow Ryan Reynolds' channel on YouTube because I think his marketing is genius. It's a lot of you guys know I used to work in marketing, so he had this thing for his gin company, which like I don't really drink almost ever. I very rarely drink, but it's just a commercial that is hysterical to me. So I don't know. I just mentioned it because I'm a weirdo. Anyway, there's a lot of things we didn't do a January live stream because I was crazy busy and scheduling got a little haywire. So there's a lot of things to kind of catch up on as far as what's going on, project, channel, some stuff I'm working on, all the usuals, right? And then we also have Q&A. We gotta do Q&A because that's kind of the fun about live streams, is that I can answer stuff and go on long tangents or be over detailed on answers when I probably could just do very simple ones. So thank you for everybody who decided to join me on your Leap Day, a Saturday morning, a little later than usual. Had some appointments this morning to take care of, but there's a couple cool things I want to go down first, and then we'll talk about just taking Q&A. So for a reminder, if you guys want to start getting questions in, just do at Bentley Pasco. It makes it a lot easier for me to see them and to pay attention. So as I go through, I'll remind you a couple times, but just if you do have a question you want me to answer on the stream, at Bentley Pasco, it makes it a lot easier for me to see them and not lose them. So number one, somehow the channel qualified for channel memberships. I thought I was way under the subscriber threshold. I thought it was like 30,000 subscribers or something like that. So I'm not sure how. I think it's because the threshold for gaming channels is a lot lower, and this channel originally had gaming content on it long before I started doing fish stuff. So I wanted to briefly talk about that. I mean, there's going to be a small video that's out that describes it relatively soon, but basically the only thing that channel memberships will do, just for those that are worried, it'll only be behind the scenes kind of stuff. So let me give you an example. You guys know that I'm currently working on a video game. Here's some art from that game. It's called Bots and the Robo Friends. It's a small little indie game studio that my friends own and run, and I'm helping them out. I'm technically an intern for legal reasons because they can't pay me, but I'm working, so I have to be an intern. It's weird stuff like that. In this particular game, I'm doing some voice acting. So I'm a couple of the villains and one very small side character. And then I'm also kind of engineering some of the sound in the background. So, they're robots. So how do you digitally make a voice sound really robotic, but make everything sound unique and different so it doesn't all have the same sound? That's the work I'm doing for the game primarily. And the first member video that's going to come up, which I'm doing basically after the stream, I'm going to shoot that video, is how I craft the voice of the main villain for the game. And so that's what this is going to be. Anything that's membership video-wise will be behind-the-scenes stuff. Any of our usual stuff, the series, big project stuff, anything like that, that's all always going to be open to anyone on the channel, period. So this is just kind of like if you want some bonus behind the scenes content type stuff, like how I do things, maybe. So like over time, what I'll do is like put out, like an example would be like how I edit videos or how I shoot videos, or if you ever want some more like in-depth information on like how I use gear or stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff that would be in member content. Anything that pertains to teaching you about fish or reviewing products, all the usual stuff that we do, all that's always going to be free. So don't worry about that, guys. I'm not going to paywall any of that kind of stuff. It's more if you want to see some like extra stuff. And my goal is something about like one good video a month, and then probably like a lot of, as I'm doing videos, I'll put up pictures that are members, and Patreon for the folks that are on Patreon. I don't want to go in a long spiel, but basically I just don't want anybody to be like, oh god, only some of the best content's only going to be behind a paywall or something like that. No. It's only behind the scenes stuff. So don't stress about this. Like if I'm doing something, say I'm interviewing some person, Jim Bob the fish keeper or whatever, or like I know at some point I'm going to go to Randy Reed's place and like film his place. You know, the day that I'm there filming, you'll have like posts that are members only that'll have maybe a short like minute video on the cell phone, or just us talk, like a picture or something like that, to let you know like, hey, this is what I'm working on, expect it in X number of weeks, however long it takes me to get it edited and get it released and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what you can look forward to as far as member stuff. So don't, if you're worried about that, don't worry. I'm purposely designing it so that members is just kind of a bonus thing and never anything that's the main stuff of what we do on the channel. So there's that. The only other perk beyond that, I mean, there's some perks. There's a couple tiers that I put in there as jokes. Like, for the love of God, don't do those tiers. Like, just, you should see them. They should say that they're a joke. Don't do them. Please don't. My brain can't handle that stuff. But there will be a members-only Discord. So for folks that love Discord and use Discord, I'll have a members-only Discord that basically lets you kind of have more direct access to me, my work schedule allowing, of course. But it'll just be something for all the members to hang out, chat. I quite like using Discord because it's something I can use for my mobile phone very simply, and it's more organized than Facebook to me, and I hate Facebook. So I know a lot of you are my friends on Facebook, but the less time I can spend on Facebook, the better. The Facebook is often a depressing place. Okay, so there's that. Of course, I kind of mentioned it there. I'm working on a video game. We're getting really close to being done. My work will be done, I think, this weekend. So like the last bits of what I'm doing are things that I'm going to create little member-only videos for, on top of doing that work. So like how I make the voice and stuff like that, for some of the villains, or makes things more robotized or less robotized or whatever that might be. And then I get to kick it basically in March. I get to kick more full gear on getting the online aquatic horticulture program done. So I've already talked to one of my developer friends, who's crazy smart, and he's done a ton of research for me because he's a super nice guy on the tech side. So that is something that we will have more directly, like us sitting down and getting the code that's required, because basically we have to create a custom solution in code. We haven't really found a solution online yet out of that in the box kind of thing that allows you to do what the program needs in order to work correctly. So yeah, I mean, not all Facebook is bad. You're right, Mr. B. There's some of you who hate Facebook like me, but I get like, if I don't turn off like 99% of the notifications on Facebook, my phone battery would go dead inside of 20 minutes because it would just lose its mind with Facebook blowing me up like crazy. And that's part of why I dislike Facebook, is because it is designed on purpose to basically try and get a person to be on Facebook 100% of the time and only pay attention to Facebook. And that's the opposite of being social. Social media is not social. Being social is going out and meeting people. Social media is faux social. It's faking that things are good. Like Instagram, you know, for most of us that are in the fish community, Instagram's fine. We're just posting pictures of fish. But like my younger brother, which I love my younger brother, do not get me wrong. You know, you'll always see pictures of when he's out doing stuff. And you'll get some people that like, especially younger folks. I'm an old grizzled man, so it doesn't matter. But you'll see a lot of just only the pictures the best, like trying to make it look like everything in your life is great. And it's so fake, and I hate it. And also, like, Facebook's a cesspit for politics, and I don't like talking politics because it's crazy. You can't agree to disagree with people anymore, and I don't like that fact. Like I'm not. I don't know. I sit in a weird realm when it comes to politics that I hate talking about it because most people are too deep for me usually, but it's okay. You know, that's the thing. I prefer talking about fish, which there are some great places out there. Like there's the Aquarium group support. There's the fish tubers notification, as Mr. B is like always really awesome about maintaining and letting people know when some of the fish tubers are live and stuff like that, so you can come hang out and chat. Thanks, Mr. B. You're really great. Yeah, Kay's got a great one there. Like pictures of every meal you ever eat. Like, really, just eat your food. Just, I mean, I get it if you like. If it is one time going to a very fancy restaurant that, you know, is purposely designed where your plates come out pretty as opposed to just being tasty food, it is both visually appealing as well as tasty. You know, that you're like high end, not Gordon Ramsay, because I would argue that a lot of his stuff doesn't come out super pretty. But if you ever watch some of those shows where they're like they really go for crazy kind of plating looks and things like that, okay, I get it. But if you like, you know, check out the appetizer I got at Applebee's, like, who cares? Why is that popular? I don't understand. Maybe I'm too old. I mean, I just don't understand. But yeah. So we'll get off that kick. So yeah, game. Then we'll be working pretty deep on the Master Aquatic program. I'm hoping I can have basically a beta available for a few folks to test that I trust, who can help me just get some extra user data in like June and then launch it in July. That's my goal. If I can do it earlier, I'll do it earlier, of course. But my goal is that kind of timeline. That's roughly the 6 months that I'd been planning on of work it would take. And so far, with everything that's going so far, it looks like we're going to hit that window pretty well. So basically in two weeks after the game launches, I'll be diving much deeper on that. So yeah, that's coming. We'll get the project done, and then we'll figure out the next point. And I actually I kind of have some grand dreams about the long-term goal on that project, but we'll talk about that later time we need to. Geez, natural aquariums. So there was a question I want to answer before it disappears too far. New YouTube Studio drives me crazy sometimes. It puts up way more things than it needs to. Okay, David Reed. So how long do I keep rainbow fry in the German breeding rings, because you corrected yourself a few seconds later, before letting them roam free? The more that I've used them, I like about 2 weeks, because it gets them to a reasonable size, and then if you can have the tank where here's the ring and that's the tank they're going to go into anyway, and then just slowly dip the ring away and tilt it to the side, let them swim out, and then pull the ring out, so that they're free swimming in that same tank. And hopefully you guys can't hear Papa Lima losing his mind, because I can't supervise him while I'm on stream, but he's in his crate, and he's been a whiny boy. I'll try to bring him on stream toward the end of the stream, by the way, just because me holding him, he's only still for so long before he wants to wiggle and run and run and run, because he's a corgi. They're herding dogs, but I will try to bring him on stream toward the end. So, yeah. Oh, Cyclist 23 is going to go buy 33-gallon longs. We're in trouble. So, yeah, that's typically about 2 weeks is what I like. You can keep them in there for up to a month. It depends on how clean you can keep that bottom screen. I've had problems with those screens just accumulating stuff way too fast, so more than 2 weeks, and I'm paranoid now. I'm trying to find a better solution. I like those things, but I think there's some changes that could be done to them that would make them better long term. I think a better foam solution around the outside, because that hard foam, it is easy to break, and once it breaks, it's just off, and you're kind of SOL. But I think there's some better tube foam oriented solutions that could probably be done without losing the functionality of the air and the sponge and all that kind of stuff. And I think the mesh that's at the bottom is way too fine. I think there's got to be a less fine mesh that can be used that would allow some food particles to get through, unless you're using purely live food, like you only have vinegar eels and you're not going to have any food that's going to go to the bottom because they're going to eat everything, maybe. But there's my biggest qualm with that is that mesh is just so fine that it lets nothing through. Like I'm feeding 5 to 50 micron food. This stuff's tiny, and it just accumulates a layer at the bottom. Even with me feeding very small amounts because it's fry, and you feed them tiny amounts, like literally a paintbrush where I'm just dipping in, tapping it, and just going tap, and it puts a little dust across the top, and that slowly accumulates and will create things like brown algae and all sorts of nasty stuff that can cause problems with the fry. So, 2 weeks, kind of my thing. Learned lesson the hard way, I suppose, is the way to put that. But yeah. Otherwise, I like the concept of those rings a lot, and I think some small engineering changes would make those things really, really good. Oh, it's Antiquated Narcotics. Hello, my friend. I'm leaving your company. For those that maybe didn't see either the post, this is the other thing I want to talk about. Either the post on Facebook or I posted in the community tab. I am changing jobs, so I currently work as a contractor for Intel, doing hardware and software testing, and I'm moving from contracting for Intel to contracting at Microsoft. And I worked for Microsoft previously for 4 years as a contractor, and I'm getting an opportunity to work on something that to me is really, really cool, which is augmented reality. So the difference there is virtual reality is like you're in a completely built digital environment. Augmented reality is overlaying things over what you see normally. So long term, the goal would be to have like your pair of glasses, and it could give you information like real-time translating signs when you're a tourist in a foreign country, or you would just glance at a restaurant as you're passing it on the road, and it would just show you its star rating based on Google reviews or whichever review you program into it to show you, giving you your nav directions like literally as a heads-up display in your vision as opposed to hearing it from your phone or something like that. Like that's the long-term consumer uses of augmented reality. Basically like kind of cyberpunk. If you're a video game person, kind of cyberpunk, but it's an opportunity that basically gives me a promotion in that I'll be a lead of several people, and at the same time I will still be really busy. So my schedule doesn't get much better. I basically end up working roughly the same hours, but I get a little bit of a increase as far as like, yeah, I get a pay raise, which is nice, but it gives me a chance to do something a little more up my alley, a little more things that I'm interested in. And I did a recording with Aquarium podcast, so Randy Reed, that should be coming out. I think it's next week. It might be the week after. And I actually kind of go in depth about talking. It was like the day before my interview for this job. So I didn't even know I had the job yet because I still had to interview my final interview for it, which was my third or fourth interview. I think fourth. And I talked about like the applications of what I could be doing in the fish world. So if you're interested in hearing more about like tech in the fish world, that'll Randy Reed, I'll link it in the community tab when it comes out, but I talked about it quite a lot. We talked about a few things that were not fish related at all, because we haven't talked in a while, and that's just what happens. But it was a very impromptu. He was testing his new setup, and I basically volunteered because it was he caught me on one random night where I wasn't busy, and I volunteered to help him out, and I didn't realize it was like the start was like, oh, I thought we were just going to test his set. I was like, oh no, we're going to record the whole thing. We might as well while we're here. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So, Mr. B, it's depending on, most companies will call it augmented reality nowadays. We used to call it altered reality. They just say augmented instead of altered because altered might indicate drugs, where augmented is specifically saying that they're adding things to what you see in real life in order to enhance information. Basically, it's basically just conveying more and more information. And I am still, if you can remember last time, I got sick again because somebody in my office came back from a vacation sick and gave it to everybody else. So that's fun. But thankfully, not the flu with Lyme that's going around. That coronavirus stuff is that's some scary nonsense. If I can give you any advice as a pharmacist's son, wash your freaking hands. Just wash your hands, please, for the love of whatever you believe in. Wash your hands, especially with this the COVID-19 that's going around. Just sanitize things, please. All right. Yeah, and there's the show Altered Carbon on Netflix, which is really good. There's episodes of Black Mirror that involve virtual and augmented reality. There's all sorts of stuff out there. But yeah, it's augmented reality is like the current day way that they revert to AR. And a lot of times you'll see AR, VR, or sometimes you'll also see it referred to as mixed reality. That's more of a like Microsoft in their gaming sphere will call it mixed reality, but augmented reality is the stuff I'll be working on, which is if you guys have seen the tech, it's Microsoft HoloLens, which is really, really cool, a little bulky for now, but we're in early hardware stages. And then long term, it'll be really, really cool. So now that we're kind of moving through stuff and I've been babbling, just a reminder, if you have a question for the chat that you want me to answer while we're doing the Q&A side of this, just do @BentleyPasco. It makes it a lot easier for me to see, and then we'll roll from there. Clint's Aqua Tanks. Thanks, man. Thanks for the sticker. I really appreciate it. You the best, dude. But yeah, so it's one of those things that just makes it easy for me to see because chat sometimes can roll really fast, so it makes it a little easier for me to spot things. So an example from JRR. I have a 40 to 60 ppm. I have 40 to 60 ppm nitrates out of the tap. I have a heavy planted tank. Use 1 pump per 10 gallons of Easy Green. My nitrates still read 40 to 60 ppm at the end of the week. How would you continue fertilizing? Wow, that's a lot of nitrates out of the tap. I mean, it's not dangerous, but I'm so used to my water, which has nothing in the tap, that's surprising. So you might try halving your dose. Like, how big are your water changes is going to be my first thing. Because what you might end up doing is finding that you don't need to water change as often because your nitrates are naturally so high out of your tap. So if you're doing, like, say, weekly 50% water changes, maybe you do that to every other week and you just do a light top off. Because you have so much mineral, I would assume you're like Midwest or something like that to have that much mineral in your water, and nitrates especially. So I would actually look at try doing half your fertilizer dose of Easy Green, and maybe even do something like I don't know how big your tank is, but you could try doing, like, let's say you have a 40 gallon. And you would, once per week, you'd put in your 4 pumps, right? Instead of doing that, every other day, do 1 pump. If it's a 40 gallon. It depends on the gallonage, but, like, just put a very small amount of fertilizer in every like, other day. And let the natural nitrates in the water and see how that affects your levels. And potentially your nitrate kit might not be reading correctly anymore, but... yeah, that's a good amount. I mean, like, it's not bad because it basically just guarantees that every time you do a water change, you've pre-fertilized. So you could, in theory, wait at 30% water change. Okay, so you could... I'm trying to think. I have a lot of questions. I don't know why it asked me to hold that question and review it. Sorry. There's this question that I'll answer in a sec from Mank Fishkeeper. But, yeah, so the nice part is that every time you're water changing, you're basically fertilizing at the same time with your nitrates being that high. But What I would look at, the other thing that you could do pothos, or there's several other plants you could do that put in your filter that are huge nitrate hogs. Um, and that can help you deal with that. Now, let me ask you this final question. Are you having any issues with your fish because the nitrates are so high? If you're not seeing any, and so high is a relative term, you're not in a dangerous level of nitrates, you're just higher than usually where we're trying to target, which is that like 10 to 20 range as a constant nitrate in the water. But 40 to 60 is not that scary. Oh, sorry, I didn't mute that in time. Oh, I know, it sounds fantastic. The only part where I would worry is like certain fish can be a little more sensitive to nitrates than others. A lot of like river style fish, or fish that are used to like really high overturns of water, so that their water is extremely clean. Even in like silty or dirty water, they don't have a lot of like nitrate to them, or mineral or ammonia. But most fish can handle that. So if you need to, shoot me an email, which is just bentley.pasco@gmail.com, exactly how it's spelled on the channel. And we can kind of like go a little further and talk a little more about that. But in general, what I would say is try lowering your dose of ferts. And if you can, figure out a thing that where you're only putting like a small amount of ferts every other day. So an example, on a 40-gallon breeder, I would put in one pump every 2 days. And what that works out to is over 8 days, you're doing the full dose, but you're doing small amounts at a time instead of a bigger dose. And your water change schedule, you could do like 50% every 2 weeks, and you'd be fine. So it's a 55-gallon with Bozemanii and Corridoras. If you're not seeing any issues with the fish, I would not worry about it. And the other thing you can do, Natural Aquariums is kind of mentioning this, you can switch to dry ferts if you want to, and then literally just cut the nitrate portion of your fertilizing out and only be fertilizing like the iron and the potassium and some of the other smaller things that you need, like a lot of your micros, and get away from having to add nitrates. Because if you have that constant nitrate in your water, it's there. But if you don't want to go through the small hassle that is dealing with dry ferts, which I totally understand, like I don't do it, even though I own a bunch of dry ferts, because I'm lazy and my schedule's crazy busy. You can get around that by just lowering the dose of your all-in-one, because you naturally have so much nitrate in the water in the first place. And there are some other stuff, like a great example, Brightwell Aquatics has a really good line of pump head dosable nutrients. And ADA has similar, and I think Tropica has another line, but Brightwell is a pretty easy one inside the US, where you can get individual stuff, so like your potassium and all that, like you kind of would with Seachem Flourish, except for this has a pump head and it has easy dosing directions. Unlike Seachem, which is like, fill this much of your cap. Like, ugh. I hate the Seachem Flourish line, because they're the way that they package them and don't put simple dosing built into it by like a pump head drives me crazy. Seachem could do so much better with like a nominal increase in cost. Like, we're talking literally 2 or 3 pennies per bottle. Just drives me nuts. Anyway, I'm gonna not rant too long about that. So yeah, I hope that helps. If not, shoot me an email and we can talk a little more in depth in it. And we can try and like really dial it in for your system because of your water source. Which, like, me personally, if I had water like that, I'd almost never have to fertilize. Right now, that'd be amazing. Also, my plants would probably grow like crazy. So yeah, if the fish are doing great, I wouldn't worry too much. Just dial back your fertilizer and you'll be okay. All right, so Mank Fish Keeper, any tips on growing my channel? I only have guppies right now. Okay. That jet is really close to my house. I don't know if you guys hear that in the background, but there is a jet flying overhead that's really close to my house. Like, the airport's 20-ish minutes away from my house, so normally I'll see planes but never hear them. But every once in a while, they come in a little low. Okay, this is the hard part. So I talked about what I consider the truth about YouTube as a small creator pretty recently, and being a specialist is okay. Don't be worried about being specialized where you only have guppies. What is important is finding a way to present information, whatever that may be. So if your goal is to be really detailed about how to breed or select on guppies, it's finding a way to do that quickly. So don't do what I do. Do not make like 20 and 30-minute long videos, because a lot of people will only watch for between 6 and 10 minutes. So you're giving lots of information to very few people, and the majority of your viewers are going to watch for like 6 minutes and go like, this guy won't shut up, I'm turn it off. I personally don't care so much, because I'm me and I do this as my hobby. But try to make your information fast and easy to digest. One of the best examples I think that's out there, you have Jason from Primetime Aquatics, and then Irene of Now Girl Talks Fish. It was previously a gamer's wife. I think those are two of the best who very quickly and efficiently present their information. Now, they do work with scripts. They're not doing it like me, where most of my stuff is like, I'll have bullet points that I want to talk to you, but I'm talking stream of consciousness and editing out when I babble too much. But I think the big thing is, like, have good audio. Video can suffer a little bit for a while as long as the audio is good, but you can make a not good camera look good with good lighting. So, like, this is a not very expensive webcam that used to look really bad, and the only difference between when it looked really bad and how it looks now is a really good light. And you don't have to have an expensive light, you just have to have a good volume of light, so that when things are well lit, it's easier for sensors and cameras to see everything and make crisp, clear imagery, compared to how it would look pixelated and terrible in the past when I didn't have a good light. The biggest problem as a small creator is that you have to compete with everyone else. You have to provide something, and sometimes that's comedy, sometimes that's raw information. Like someone like me, I know a lot about a few things, right? And I stick to those few things quite well. Or I do things that are more revolving around how I work in my actual physical career and applying it to fish. And that can provide useful information to a lot of people. But there are plenty of people out there who will like do a review of a filter, right? And it's like, here's the Aqua Clear 110. It's amazing. It does XYZ. But not a lot of people will, work with that thing for 6 months and then finally put the video out if it's new. So it's one of those things that if you can provide something different that is usually educational or entertaining, growth can be slow. Not everybody is going to be like MD Tanks is a really great example, who just like grew really, really fast. But he's a super entertaining guy. He's got a style, and he's got some things in the algorithm working for him. So an example is from the technical perspective of YouTube. If you live outside of the United States and a majority of your audience is in the United States, YouTube will naturally promote your videos faster and to more people than someone in the United States who is watched by the United States. When someone is international and their audience is bulk from a different country than where they live, that triggers something inside of YouTube to be like, hey, there must be some appeal to this that's really important. We need to promote it more and more. And it basically gives them a higher preference inside of the algorithm for recommendation. That's the dark side of YouTube that a lot of people don't necessarily want to know or don't like. In the end, be yourself. Don't be fake. Provide good information. Try to make it short and sweet. Don't babble too much, and make sure your audio is good and clear. Those are my biggest pieces of advice. It's perfectly fine to only talk about guppies. Guppies are very, very popular. There are a lot of people who love watching nothing but guppy content. But if you can expand past that, that's helpful. So we have some other questions. Lots of stuff I want to get taken care of. Got a question about boost there, I see. So make sure I didn't miss something in here. Okay, lots of stuff. Mr. Kaler mentioned me a video last night. Thanks, man. Need someone to ID some moss I was gifted. I'm really bad at IDing moss. I am not a very good moss guy. I can try to help, but you actually might have better luck with somebody like H2O Plants if he'll answer you. I don't know how reliable he is to get information out of. But I'm not the best at moss, but you have my email. You're welcome to email me and I can try and help. I don't know how successful I'll be, but I'll try. Moss is like the one thing I'm really, really not very knowledgeable about. And it's just because I'm not, how to put this? I like moss, but I don't like doing the amount of work it takes to make it look really good. So I don't really grow moss very often. Stephen P. I purchased supposedly blue boost on a whim, but it's green. How does one make it blue? Oh boy. So I'm going to avoid my long and ranty way of basically saying how I hate how boost is advertised. But most of the boosts that are described as blue or purple, typically you either have to have really good spectrum light that naturally will adhere to that, and you have to look at them at an angle, or you have to put them in extremely low light situations where they're more shaded out and those colors start to push out more. Yeah, I mean, there's thousands of mosses. There's jillions of mosses. So in the case of like that boost that I got from Biped Shrimp, Eric Lucas, the Narcissus blue, you see that blue when you look at it at an angle. If you look at it completely top down flat, it'll just look green. But in the water at an angle is when you start to see that blue iridescence, and it's faint. It's not going to look bright blue like my shirt. It's an iridescence, kind of like how Emperor Tetras, for example, you'll see like blue Emperor Tetra or purple Emperor Tetra, and it's that iridescence that moves across their scales. It's how the light reflects that you're going to see in little bits, but it's not going to be like a neon Tetra. There's just big blue stripe. So boost is kind of deceptive in that way, in that all the colors, unless it's a red, because most of the reds are really obvious, but like the blue or purple or whatever, it's the way that the light reflects off the leaf. It will display certain colors to you, and it's all about the angle you view it from. But it's not going to be like, you know, this blue here on my shirt, right? It's not going to be like that. You can make some of them display that a lot more, especially in the brownie subgroup of boosts. But the way that you do that is basically you put it in extremely low light to where you think it's going to die, and then you hit it with really bright light after it's been like that for a while, and that color will show up for a bit, but then it'll slowly go back to full green, because if you keep that light on it the whole time, it's real crazy. And if you can get natural sun, a lot of those plants look like that under natural sunlight. And again, it's at a viewing angle that shows that iridescence better, and our artificial light that we use through LEDs and stuff like that is a lot harder to create that unless you're closer to the daylight spectrum, which is that 5600 to 6500 Kelvin kind of range, which is, you know, what we call daylight. It just depends on whether you want it ever so slightly warm. Like I think 5600 is technically the true daylight spectrum, but 6500 is still in that spectrum. Yeah, it's a careful game. I like most of my boosters for their leaf texture. I just look at leaf texture and use it like that, or leaf size in some cases. So I hope that helps answer your question. I know it's not exactly the easiest answer. It's not just like, do X and it becomes bright blue. Sadly, not the case with boosts. Carmos Creations, like what a sweet name. Hey, Bentley, I live in Port Angeles. Port Angeles is a wonderful place, especially like if you want to go somewhere that's quiet in Washington and just kind of chill, but have like still be in a relatively decent sized town so you have some amenities. Port Angeles is it. I've visited Port Angeles several times on small vacations where we just kind of like did a little road trip and went and hung out in Port Angeles for a day or two. It's always fun. Like Port Orchard's kind of like that too, although it's a lot smaller than Port Angeles. Would you recommend I join the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society? Yeah, I overpronounced that, I know. So let me ask you this question. If your goal in joining is to participate in the programs and have access to the talks online, and then if you go to one of the two or the big auctions, have the ability to register items and sell them, then yes, because it's like $15 a year. Why not? And almost every month you're going to get a video that comes online that's sometimes two, from a well-known person within the hobby, or at least somebody who is very knowledgeable, and it might be on a very scientific level, or it might be somebody like the club's own Lawrence Kent, who's phenomenal and has done all sorts of world traveling and caught all sorts of cichlids that were not in the hobby before and crazy nonsense like that. It could be Gary Lang, it could be Karen Randall. These are just people that I know recently. You'll get them online and be able to have access to them, because you have to have a member to have access to that. They're not going to be put on YouTube or Vimeo or anything like that where everybody can see them. And part of that is there's like most of the speakers, part of their jam is they go to clubs and they get paid a little bit to go do all this. And that's kind of how their fun part of their hobby makes a little bit of money, right? For some of these like super knowledgeable people. Or maybe that they go to the club not to make money off the speaking fee, but then they'll have a thing where they are allowed to bring, maybe they just wrote a book, or maybe they have some fish that they'll bring and sell. And that's kind of how they make their little chunk of cash to make it worthwhile or whatever. If you only want to do that, then it's totally worth it. Now, if you're planning to go to every meeting, that's a bit of a haul, Port Angeles to Seattle on a Tuesday night. I mean, go for it if you want to. Like, I think there are lots of resources that the club has that are phenomenal. But I guess my question is, what do you intend to get out of the club? And if what you intend is like access to the breeding and plant program, and then being able to watch the talks online and go to a couple of the larger events that typically are on Saturdays, then it's totally worth it. It's like $15 a year or $20 a year. Who cares? It's cheap. And now if it's like, I want to make every meeting and I don't know if I can make that drive because it's on a Tuesday night, well, then maybe not. But if you want access to the information kind of like you were going to meetings, perfect reason to do it. I think joining a club, even if it's a little far away, if they do as much as like the GSAS does, where they put talks online that you can watch full videos of and stuff like that, their club fees are so cheap that it's almost always worth being a part of a club when they do that level of stuff. Now, smaller clubs, might not be able to do that, and it gets a little harder. Make sure I didn't miss a question. Got so many great people in chat, man. There's 70 of you here. Holy Lord. That's a lot for me, especially like middle of a Saturday at coming on noon Pacific time. Pogamus Maximus, what's up, my guy? What's the best time to fertilize your tank? I'm gonna say this in the least scientific way possible. Doesn't matter. You could put fertilizers in at night. You could put fertilizers in the morning. I do mine in the morning when I'm feeding, because that's just when I'm making rounds around my tanks. It really doesn't matter, because you just want it to get in the water column, and the plants are going to use it when the plants need to use it. And if you're probably not putting too much fertilizer into the water to where you're going to make your fish sick, so it doesn't really matter. But I personally put my fertilizers in the morning. Like, lights will have been on for maybe an hour. I'll fertilize, and then I'll basically like fertilize tanks in a room, and then I'll follow the same route. Whatever tank I fertilized first, now I'm going to feed, and then I'll feed them all, so that it has a little time to get into the water before I put food in, just as a paranoia, so that like my fertilizer's not adhering to my food. It shouldn't happen like that, but just, why not be paranoid? And it doesn't really matter. Like, you could do it whenever is most convenient for you. The only time it would matter is if you were dosing a really extremely high dose of something for some reason, but I really doubt you're doing that. So And there are some people who do some crazy nonsense for very specific reasons, and then it probably matters to like dose while CO2 is running and while plants are like photosynthesizing and have that big nutrient boost hit your water column. But for most of us who just like are doing simple fertilization, it really doesn't matter. I'm sure someone could, like, from a scientific perspective, like, well, it's 25% more effective if you do it blah. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. Dakota Brown. I have a dwarf aquarium lily that started to float after about 9 months in my tank and left a couple baby plants in the substrate. So is the bulb dying, or will it eventually sink again? So it's interesting. I've had bulbs in red tiger lotus, not in dwarf aquarium lily, go light. And when they go light, I've never gotten them to create a new plant. Now, the plant that's attached, you can break that off of the bulb, and it will be fine. If it has its little rosette root cluster, it doesn't need the bulb anymore. If it doesn't have a full rosette root cluster yet, you want to keep it attached because it's slowly still growing out, and that bulb is helping it grow along. But once it has established its own root system, it doesn't matter anymore. It's going to get everything from pulling up nutrients from the roots and up in the water column. So you don't have to worry too much about that. But what you can do with most of those is you can break them off of the bulb, and if the bulb is still heavy, it has the capacity to make another new plant. So a lot of times you can buy like one lily bulb and get 4 or 5 lilies out of it over time. It's a slow process. Like, I think the last time I did this was with, again, red tiger lotus. I had one bulb give me like 5 plants, and I got roughly a plant every 3 to 4 months. And then I would let it sit on the bulb for about a month until it established a good set of roots off the rosette, and then I would plant it and break it off the bulb and let the bulb sit there. But once that bulb got so light that it floated, I never saw another plant come out of those bulbs, even if I weighed it down to keep it down in the water and made sure it was getting like lots of light and was doing fine and perfectly available on the surface of the substrate. I never saw another plant come out of it. But if it would sink on its own, over time it would always give me another plant. So the plant won't die, but the bulb might not be able to produce any more new plants. But break the plant away, plant it down, you should be okay. The Zen Ginger. Know anything about planting mangroves in brackish tanks that were already acclimated to fresh water before I received them? So I'm assuming the mangroves were acclimated to fresh water? If that's the case, one, I want to know who acclimated them in freshwater, because they're usually really finicky about doing that. I mean, very similar to how you'd acclimate them to freshwater, you want to reacclimate them to brackish and just slowly introduce them to a slowly increasing salinity. And for the most part, they just want their roots kind of down in. They don't necessarily need to be planted. With most mangroves, so you could plant them the same you have them planted now. You just want to slowly get them used to the newer salinity levels over time, and that process might be 2 or 3 months of slowly acclimating them. Now, most mangroves are pretty tough. I'm assuming it's like red mangrove, probably. Red mangrove is pretty good at going back to brackish, but man, if they got it. If you already have it acclimated to fresh, I'd be really tempted to see how long I could keep it in fresh water. I mean, of course, if you're trying to do a brackish water tank, like, convert them, or get new ones. But yeah, I can't give you any super specific details just because I haven't done a lot with mangrove. But you could slowly acclimate them across and then plant them similar to how they're planted in fresh. A lot of times, most people just have them sitting open root in the water column because they can do that for a while. Or you could get, basically build a ledge inside your tank. So let's say that you have a bunch of rocks here and then the bottom of the tank's actually down here. And the rocks create a wall so that you have some substrate here, and you could plant the mangrove on the edge in the substrate. And then it has lots of room to have that root ball come over the rock and stuff and get into the water column, but still have part of it in some form of soil. That might be the best approach. But Yeah, I don't have anything. I don't have any like super good details because I just personally have not messed with mangroves. A person you might ask for that, Zen Ginger, would be Corvus Oskin because he has played with mangroves, and he might be able to better answer that question. Doo-doo-doo. Lived in Washington for 40 years and never been to Port Angeles. Man, you're missing out. Port Angeles is nice. I'm telling you, like, it's a fun little trip. There's a great intersection out that way on the peninsula. It is the intersection of Kitchen Dick and Woodcock roads. Somebody was having fun in the olden times when they named that one. I'm gonna make sure I didn't miss a question before K's, because I could have swore I did, but okay, I guess not. Doesn't look like it too much. You're famous now. Oh no, I don't know about that. Okay, so from K, is it true that pink flamingo crypt reverts back to green? It can. Typically, if it isn't getting enough light or CO2. So most flamingo crypts, when you see them without CO2, they will have very small amounts of pink and they'll have kind of like green striations that take over and they become something that's more green with little pink striations in it, almost like a marbly pattern. That's what happens when they don't have CO2. In order to keep that like high pink color, they are normally in either an immersed setup where they're getting atmospheric CO2, which is significantly higher than it's ever going to be in the water, or they're in a introduced CO2 environment. So, like adding pressurized CO2 or something like that is how you get that deep pink color and bright light. Strong light and CO2 is basically how you keep pink flamingo crypt happy and pink. It will go kind of greenish with a little bit of pink without CO2, but it's tough to keep the pink color without CO2. I've tried and failed miserably, but that plant's also so finicky to start with that it can be a pain, in the sense that like it will seem like it's very happy and then just like die out of nowhere on you if one thing is not right in its system for fertilizer. And yeah, it's some of those like recessive gene Wendetti eyes can be such a pain in the keister to deal with. Drives me crazy, but I love them because they look so cool. Sponge filters are good for them. So Aquaball's tried my trick of like tying moss to a sponge filter. You basically have to. There's a careful game in figuring out how to keep it attached at the edge, but let it be free floating as it goes wide, in order to keep it like really really good. You figure it out eventually, but it's like a real careful game. It's about the right amount of airflow, but not too much and not too little. Okay, I'm gonna address the Chubby Guppy first. Thank you, my friend, for the $10 super chat. You're too kind. Blue Hawaiians are going crazy, and the Guppy Palace Midwest is thriving, dude. I can't wait. I need to like dip in on your channel. I've been working my brains out, and you're one of two channels that normally I like to kind of binge watch, where like I'll pick a day and I'll watch 4 or 5 of your videos to catch up, that I haven't in a while because I've just been not having the time to do the stuff I want to do because I've worked 3 jobs instead of 2. This game is killing me. But I can't wait when it releases because it'll be super fun. I'm glad to know that they're doing well. Mine are, my Guppy Mansion needs some serious work because after I hurt my back and went through like all my physical therapy, which I'm finally done with physical therapy, my back is mostly established to whole. There's still a few things I need to do around my house, as far as like exercises my physical therapist wants me to do, and then there's some other stuff that I need to do because my knees are old. That's like really what it comes down to. They're old, and there's some exercises I need to do to build some better knee strength. It's mostly the muscles that surround the knee, just to do a couple things to make sure long term I don't run into that kind of issue again. And so like I have these exercises that I have to do, like these types of like lunges and like high steps where I bring my knees up, which I did martial arts for years, so it's actually really easy to do a lot of stuff. I'm oddly flexible for a big guy, but it's like, yeah, I need to do this every day, and it takes 15 minutes or so to do it. It's not that bad. And there's these other little exercises where like certain muscles have to be activated, is what they call it. But basically, it's like you're very ever so slightly flexing certain muscles to activate them, and then you hold it for like 5 to 10 seconds and release, and then do it over and over again. So like when I'm in traffic, for example, driving to work, there's this the very lowest part of your abdomen. So this is your stomach. You've got this really low band of muscle down here at the very bottom of your abdomen, and it's basically like pulling that muscle in and then squeezing your glutes at the same time and holding that for like 10 to 15 seconds. And so I'm doing that in traffic, and it probably looks really weird because I'm sitting completely straight up, like I'm grabbing my wheel like this, so that it makes it simple. And then like after 10 minutes, I'll just relax and drive normally in my car. And I know there's gonna be people that are like, what the hell is that fat guy doing in his car? But it's like fitting time in to do some of that stuff, because it really matters long term for after injuries like mine, making sure that you don't do it again. But once that's all done, I have a lot of algae that I have to clean out of my guppy mansion, and there's some small changes I want to make to it that should be long term better for my colony. And then I want to get another tank going, so I can like select some specific females and males out and let them breed a little bit more, so that I just get a bigger colony. I know that like I've had so many people beating down my door to ship fish, but I've been so crazy busy I can't. But I want to get to a point where I can again, and get some more people guppies, because I want that fish to be all over the place. I don't care. One of these days, I'll get it to happen. Okay, so thank you, Chubby Guppy. Good to hear from you, buddy. I'm glad both you and Bob are having like really good success with the guppies, because you guys know your stuff. So I know that like by having them in your hands, they're going to be well off and do just fine. And more importantly, can slowly get distributed to other hobbyists too. Krager's Fish. All right, man. I promise I'm not missing your question. In your opinion, the best way to grow algae on rocks for Tropheus to graze on? I have one LED Aquaneat RGB and a 6500K, so daylight spectrum Kelvin shop light on 4-foot tanks, and a fluorescent 4100K on a 6-foot tank. So tough. The easiest way is to have too many phosphates in the water. Like seriously, to have an abundance of fish food as a starter to get the algae going. But the trophies are going to eat that algae like crazy, right? So really what you want to do is get the algae to a point of where it is acting as your nitrate filter. It's kind of tough maintaining algae in a controlled way when you want your fish to eat algae. You could, so like one of the days that you could do it is you could basically create an algae scrubber, and you would have to do that like in a sump is the way you'd have to do it, where you just 24/7 bombard a chamber of your sump with light so that the algae builds up in there, and then you would literally just scrape algae to move it into the tank and try to get it to adhere on the rocks, or just feed the Tropheus with it and let it keep regrowing in the chamber of the sump over and over again. Doing it on the actual rocks with light, it's really just overexposing. So like leave those lights on like 16 hours a day or something. I mean, seriously, a long time. And don't be afraid to like heavy feed your Tropheus a little bit, because that'll kind of kickstart the algae. Don't do it for too long. Make sure your water changes are good just to be safe about it. But that's your best bet as far as trying to get stuff set up and kind of kickstart that process. Yeah, tail end of being sick at work. It's the best. I don't want to dog on my coworker, but that I have one coworker who could have worked from home. It's like one of the only people in the office who didn't work from home while sick, and has gotten like half my team sick, including me. Although I'm at the tail end of it, so not so bad. Okay. Couple of questions. Man, they all came in at like the same time. Clint's Aqua Tanks. Any update on the Brightwell filter media? Sorry for like I missed this earlier. I know you said it, and okay. Depends on I've have it running, and the problem I'm running into is finding the balance inside the Zis filter. So the the filter that they've created a moving bed with in the past, like they have this big tubular thing to display it, is broader than the Zis. And finding getting it saturated enough, it's actually like one of my things today is to go and like monkey with it some more to get it right. And maybe it's just because I haven't built enough of a bacterial colony that it's not weighing it down enough yet to create that cycle. Because even the K1, it's not truly K1's build of colonists, but it's basically K1 colonists. The difference is so minimal. Even it's not cycling right because it doesn't have a built-up bacterial colony yet, so it's not weighted down with that small, minuscule amount of weight that helps it move in the air better. It's basically just a long process of, without having a fish load, building up a bacterial colony. I have my ammonium chloride down there, and it's just, I've been, uh, with all the interviews and stuff I've been doing for getting this new job, and then prepping to go to the new job by like getting my team ready and transferring knowledge to people and writing a documentation, I have admittedly slacked a little on that project. But everything's pretty much hammered down. I think, some spoilers, I'm taking most of next week off. So that's going to let me like film a bunch of YouTube content and get some extra work done on the game. Just outside of the audio stuff I'm doing, just to help them a little bit more, because they're trying to go to the Emerald City Comic Con in 2 weeks. Yeah, it's 2 weekends from now, to basically launch the game. So they're kind of in panic mode. So I'm trying to help my friends get their game done, and then I get to go like really hardcore in most of my YouTube projects, because then I won't be working the third job of the game, which is taking a lot of my time at any given evening. Like I'll get home from work at 8 p.m. or 8:30 p.m. and then I'll work on the game until like 11 or midnight. and somewhere in there, there's dinner, and like I'm eating horribly right now just because my schedule's so crunched. So like, I'm grabbing dinner on the way home. It's lots of garbage. So you guys can chastise me about that later. But it needs to be done because they need to get the thing out. And not they're trying their best not to delay too much, which I think they have to delay like 1 week. They originally wanted to launch March 6th, and I don't think we can do that, just because there's so much hand-drawn art that has to be done, and there's only so many artists to do it, because it's a very small company. It's like 3 people, and then a bunch of friends helping out who are all interns. Like me, I'm an intern. I haven't been an intern since I was in college. 18 years ago? Oh god, yeah, it's been a while. I'm old. Okay, natural aquariums. What is the best way to acclimate tissue cultures? I think you said you use cooler water once, at least for crypts. Yeah, so a lot of the stems and stuff can go into like a warm tank right away. Like realistically, if you could, you would stage them in temperatures. So in crypts in particular, I have found they're less likely to melt when they go into like between 68 and 74 degree water. So a little bit cooler. You can still be warm, but cooler. So I rinse in a like lukewarm, so barely warm to touch tap water, get all the gel or whatever's on it off. Some are in a liquid medium, some are in a gel medium. And then from there, really like the best way to help them acclimate the fastest is OK light and CO2. But if you don't have CO2, just give them a good spot and just be patient. Like they'll kick in and they'll do their thing. Just make sure that they get nutrients to dose on, and they're not being like, ripped apart by cories or something like that, and they'll be fine. Like cooler water tends to help with a lot of them because they're grown, and a lot of times they're stored basically almost at like refrigerator type temperatures where they're in their like 40 degree temperature range. So they're used to being in the cold. So one of the ways you can do is like let that tissue culture sit at room temperature for a while, like a day, and then rinse it off. Now, if it's a really, really finicky plant like pink flamingo, don't let it sit for more than a day. You got to be really, really careful. And sometimes you just don't let it sit at all, and you just gotta like pray to the aquaculture gods that they're gonna be generous to you on that particular day. Um, and yeah, tissue cultures are both great and horrible at the same time in that they do great usually if you have CO2 or just a lot of patience. So from DS, who's a local club member and lives like 5 minutes from my house, has two pink flamingos, pale bubblegum in a non CO2 tank, but highlight. So there you go. There's highlight tends to help, but if you have so highlight that it causes algae, then it's another problem. There's a careful game with that plant, man. I both love it and hate it. All right, try to catch up on the chat, man. You guys are active today. I also talk too much, as we well know. Kung Fu Bentley. No, I actually did. So I did not do Kung Fu. I did Taekwondo, Hapkido, Kenpo Karate, and a little bit of Jeet Kune Do. Yeah, I know. I'm a weirdo. A big guy who did a lot of martial arts when he was young, and I played a lot of baseball too, which is part of why my knees are just like destroyed. Holy good lord, I'm way behind a chat. Oh my god, it's Jimmy Swisky. Thanks for the $2 sticker, buddy. You're so kind. It's good to see you, man. You don't normally show up in my chats. I show up in all yours. I show up to harass you because you left me. Oh. Okay. I'm going to try and catch up. I'm going to try and go a little faster on questions because I know I'm a little behind. So, Sakana Katana, which I always love your name. It's so great. What plants do you think look best against white sand? Also, the Blue Hawaiian Guppy trio you sent me last summer have produced a thriving colony. One, glad you have a thriving colony. Best against white sand. I actually like, if I'm going to do ever a white sand tank, I will do nothing but epiphyte plants. So Java ferns, Anubiuses, Boos, Bulbitis, like all those good green plants that I can get attached to wood or rock, because that allows the sand to be free. You're not planting into the sand. And that allows you to keep sand sifters, so whether that's a loach or whether you want like geophagus or something like that, and they can continuously sift the sand to keep the sand nice and clean, so it's that bright white color. Then you have this lovely lush green. Like you could have a highlight red plant here or there. Like I guess you could do like a lily or something like that, but I would just go green. I would have like dark wood or rock, you could have manzanita or Cereus stone, whatever, but not, I would not use like dragonstone personally, because that's going to get you those like yellowy tones that are a little lighter. I want the sand to be the one bright part, and then like my brighter green tones, and then everything else to look dark, because the way that you highlight, so this is an artist perspective talking, the way that you show whites is their shadow. The way that you make whites pop and look better is the way that you shadow them. So the way that we could do that inside of an aquascape, right, or any fish tank, is by choosing darker rocks, and if you can get darker greens, so some of like there's like Hygrophila green olive if you want a stem that is a darker green naturally. There are some species like the Singapore dark, Java ferns that are a little darker color tone. Bulbitis is naturally a darker green. Bulbitis hudalodoi. Use those because that's going to make that white really pop. And then if you have fish that are naturally sand sifters to begin with, whether that's Crepensis, Geophagus, a lot of the loach types love sifting through sand. Corydoras sift through sand. You get those in a darker color too. It looks amazing. It looks amazing. I'm bad at sand because like I want to put like Val and things like that in it, and then it gets like just terrible because I won't get fish that sift the sand enough because I want the plants to do okay. And it's like self-destructive. So if I really want to do a good sand tank, which spoilers, I got one that I want to do. I want to do one with Shelly's, which will come into a question that's coming up here shortly. That's how I would do white sand. And you don't necessarily have to have sand sifting fish. Like you could have the blue guppies with white sand, but to keep that sand bright, you want something that sifts that sand and turns it over a lot. And it could be like Malaysian trumpet snails, but realistically, I would look for a true sand sifting fish because they do that so much better. All right. I'm going to try and catch up on chat, man. It's good to see the Jimmy in here. It's like the most artistic guy in the whole of the YouTubes for fish people. It's the guy I aspire to be even remotely close to in his editing and filming talent, and I know that's not going to happen anytime soon because he's just too damn good. You hear me, Jimmy? It's called compliments. Mr. B's Fish Things, what CO2 diffuser should I be using? I tried the cheap order ones with no luck. Yeah, I wish cheaper CO2 diffusers were better. I really do, because one of the biggest barriers to doing CO2 is cost. And the equipment can be really expensive, and the tank can be expensive, and all that stupid stuff. I like the CO2 art line as far as kind of a middle ground. Aquatech is okay, but I would rather have a CO2 art over an Aquatech. You don't have to go super crazy and do like the GLA Greenleaf aquariums, like really expensive ones. There are these guys out there that make, as my phone makes noise, and I realize I haven't silenced it, but I've just been lucky the whole time. Woo! Okay, let's solve that problem real fast. There are these guys that make like homemade diffusers that are going to be the best you'll ever find that still like haunt around the planettank.net, but you got to find them and then hope that they don't have a back order list because they make like one every couple months for fun, and they'll sell that one. And it'll be cheaper than any diffuser on the market, and it'll be better than every diffuser on the market. So there are DIY ways to make your own diffuser, which if you're handy, do that. You will make something better than anything you can buy because you can get better parts and you can do more fine tuning. Now, as far as purchasing, you go the really high end. GLA is probably like the nicest stuff out there. There's some stuff that's available in Europe that's better than what we have here in the States for its price point. But I would just look at like CO2 art as kind of like my ground level of good, but not atrociously expensive. And you can they have expensive versions of their regulators too that are like really nice, but don't go too crazy. Unfortunately, like the $40 regulators have lots of problems with them, and it's just because to make them cheap, they have to cut those costs. I have Bosebonite. Okay, so Dana Burke. I have Bosebonite and Praecox fry born at the same time. Would raising them in the same aquarium work out well? Yeah, they grow it. Bosebonite grow really, really slow. Praecox grow relatively fast. So you're going to have runners, and almost all those runners will be the Praecox at first. And what we mean by runners is the ones that get significantly bigger than everybody else in the tank. You'll just need to separate those guys away as you can. So if most of the fish are half an inch and you have like 3 or 4 that are an inch, they are going to dominate the food. So if you can move those inch fish out to a different tank and let them grow separately and let everybody catch up, overall you'll have a healthier group in general, and you'll keep more numbers in your fish. Ooh, Mike got some Upper Tor River rainbows. Speaking of rainbow fish, that's a really cool rainbow. Lucas is like the guy who always talks about his Upper Tor Rivers all the time. I like them. The rainbows I want, because I have such limited space right now, they're not even remotely on my list. But long term, I'd love to keep them. They're very, very pretty. I want like the next rainbow I want is either the Centenniensis or the Maculosus. I lost my Maculosus, and I'm super, super sad about that when I got them from Gary Lang. And I did really, really love that rainbow. There are some questions in chat. Jiminy Christmas. All right. From Sharpies, I think I've almost caught up on chat. What veggie foods for baby bristlenoses, other than zucchini, courgette, would you recommend for use? I won't eat the bits the Plex don't, by the way. You can do cucumber or green beans. Like, honestly, the canned green beans that are not in no salt. They've no salt added, and just you can rinse them. I've done frozen green beans because it can be a little easier. If you can, get the French cut ones. That's the ones where they're like split in half. They're much easier for them to eat. Green beans are probably like one of the most cheap and efficient sources of pleco food out there, other than like zucchini, courgette. Depending on where you live, whether you call it a courgette or a zucchini. And the cucumber is also fine. Like mine love cucumber. They demolish cucumber like crazy whenever I put it in there. So it depends on what's cheapest. Green beans are going to be the cheapest, but if you want something a little, there's some nutrient value that's a lot better in zucchini and courgette than most of the other foods. You can also do leafy green vegetables, but you just have to rinse them really, really well. And a lot of times you need to kind of like parboil them really fast. So, put them in boiling water for 60 seconds or so to soften them up. And you can do things like mustard greens or Swiss chard or kale. Some of that kind of stuff can also be stuff. There's great lists out there. I personally like zucchini, cucumber, and when as a staple, green beans. And you could do other things like pumpkin, carrot, sweet potato. Like I've seen all this kind of stuff that a lot of like the big pleco people have done. Jeffro's fish keeping. Jeffro has tried all sorts of stuff with his plecos, and they just demolished like pretty much anything gets put in there. So, take that with you. But you could also do like butternut squash or any of those other kind of like smaller squashes. They're all good for plecos. They'll all eat pretty much all of it. Man, Jimmy active in chat too. Crazy talk. Massive brown algae, month half's gone. Oh, talking about getting brown algae with some of the nutrient-rich substrates, if you will. That's super common. Yeah, I know Lucas Jr. is growing out maculosis. I'll probably eventually just like beg Gary to give me them again. It's like I'm kind of lucky in that I can work with Gary. I love Lucas, do not get me wrong, but there are a lot of people who want fish from Lucas, and oddly to say, it is actually easier for me to like figure out things with Gary than it is with Lucas. I've tried with Lucas in the past, and we've done some fish trades and stuff in the past, and like Lucas is great, do not get me wrong, but he needs to run a business too, where Gary does it for fun. So I get an opportunity to cheat a little with Gary, and like Bob Steenfot, for example, has been bringing in some really good like Gary Lang level or Gerald Allen level rainbows lately. So I know the people he's talking to, and I might, if I was gonna like, how do I put this? If I was going to help someone on their business side make a few bucks, I would help out Bob, but that's only because Bob is here in the state and I can just drive up to his place and pick up fish, where I can force him to acclimate them, I can force him to medicate them, where I can't necessarily do that with Lucas and then be like, okay, now just drive him to my place. He's in the middle of the country. I'm on one of the coasts. It's a little harder that way, but for folks that are closer to Lucas, much easier, right? But he also has Lucas has some stuff that's pretty hard to find outside of the same circles that both he and I talk to. I think part of the problem with rainbows and Lucas for me is that like we both talk to the same sources that he got most of his rainbows from. So I'll just go to the source because I'll cheat. But I have some fish from Lucas, and I have some shrimp from Lucas too, and I love them all. So might go to him if I can get like juvenile maculosis instead of fry. So if I can get some that are already like 1.5 inches or so and get like 30, then yeah, I would talk to Lucas. But like I know with Gary I have to get eggs. It's just the way it is. All right, so we are at closing in on noon, so we got a little like 40 minutes left stream technically. I'm gonna go for the usual 2 hours. We will wait on chat. Again, if you have questions, just at Bentley Pasco. I'll be happy to answer them, make sure I don't miss them. I finally caught up with chat because I'm so long-winded. But just some short updates. So for those that might not have been here at the very, very start, we have channel memberships now, which is crazy. I don't know how my channel qualified for them. And those should be live, I think, now. I think the channel thing told me they're live, but I don't know if they're showing up. I have a video I'm working on as a part of the video game I've been working on. That'll be some behind the scenes stuff. That's the kind of stuff that'll be featured in the members only content. So don't worry about like fish content being behind there. You'll be totally fine. Other than maybe some like, here's what I'm working on right now. You'll see it in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it is. Those are the things that will be the fish content that will end up in members only. Anything that's a standard video, testing items, plants for profit, fish room tours, any of that kind of stuff, that's always going to be on the channel. It's going to be available for free. You don't have to be a member, all the usual stuff. So just don't stress about that. And then again, should have a relatively large update to the online aquatic horticulturist program at the end of March. So 2 weeks into March, the game I'm working on launches, and then I won't be working on that anymore, and I can like dive really hardcore into that program. I've done a lot of the groundwork, and my buddy, my main developer buddy who's been helping me, has done a lot of extra groundwork for me. So we're trying to figure out the best solution. Part of it is security, like making it so that it can't be hacked, making it so it doesn't store too much information. And then the other thing is, yeah, so there's all sorts of things. And I didn't, Zen Ginger, just a reference, I didn't add gaming. This channel was originally actually a gaming oriented channel, sort of. I did guides for a game that I play for some friends, and the best way to do them was on videos. And I used to do a little bit of Twitch streaming here and there when I did some, hardcore player versus environment raiding in Final Fantasy 14. I used to be like actually really, really hardcore raider in a lot of MMOs. I don't have that kind of time anymore. So I don't do that. And I think that's how it got triggered at like a significantly lower subscriber base than all the other ones, but whatever. I guess I'll try to take advantage of YouTube's mistake and like put that in place. I don't know. I'll just see how it works. If people aren't interested in memberships, I'll turn it off. That's just how it is. I'm not too stressed about it, but it's an opportunity to add some extra stuff and do it in a way that's short and not like necessarily to the edited level. It lets me put things that are unlisted, basically, that don't impact viewer metrics. And that's the side of me that like tries to actually be a real YouTuber, is like looking at viewer metrics and trying not to totally destroy my channel so that I can help educate more people and get more people better at fish keeping. Am I going to get Final Fantasy VII Remake? Hell yes. So okay, man, Jimmy, you're going to make me go into a long story. I do not like Sony PlayStation. I own a Sony camera. I love my Sony camera. I like Sony cameras in general. I love everything Sony's doing with their cameras. Well, okay, I don't love everything, but they're not giving me the camera I want. But I have all the way back in PS2, I had huge problems with the PS2. I had, basically the short version of the story is I had 3 PS2s, brand new, all die at 91, 92, and 93 days. And back then, the warranty was only 90 days. And PlayStation of America, Sony of America, refused to do anything to help. It was just, oh, you can send it in, and for like $30 less than buying a brand new console, we'll fix it and send it back to you in 2 months. Well, that pissed me off a lot. That pissed me off a lot. So I kind of, from there on out, decided I was never going to give Sony, as far as PlayStation side, a dime of my money ever again. So I don't own a PS3. I don't own a PS4. I am going to have to get a PS4 because I really, really, really want to play Final Fantasy VII Remake because it looks so good. Like, as far as games I'm interested in, I really, really cannot wait for Cyberpunk 2077 because I used to play like Cyberpunk, the pen and paper RPG. I used to play. I'm a big like pen and paper RPG nerd. So if you ever wonder like how level of nerd I am, like I play Magic. I used to play D&D. I still do play D&D when I can. Every once in a while, I'll do like a one-off session with some of my friends that I used to play D&D with. The guy who used to basically sign the checks for my team at Intel, I played D&D with him for like 15 years. It's like this is a small world that he happened to be in charge of that team when I was interviewing for it. but and again, I used to play tons of console games, PC games. Cyberpunk is the big one I'm looking forward to. Final Fantasy VII Remake. My girlfriend really cannot wait for Animal Crossing. I've been playing like Pokemon with her, which I haven't played Pokemon since the very first Red and Blue Pokemon. So that's been kind of an interesting dive to see how much Pokemon's changed in that much time. No, I'm older than Corey, so Corey's trying to be my level of nerd. I used to play MUDs. For those who don't know what that is, that's a multi-user dungeon that was text-based, basically D&D on IRC clients and like Telnet back in the day. Yeah, I'm a hardcore nerd. Okay, Corey cannot touch the level of nerd I am. No, but I respect Corey because Corey was really hardcore on the things that he was into, and we've talked bits about that. We've had some long conversations about the nerd things in our lives. And then the other one is like Baldur's Gate 3 is coming out, and that looks really really good so far. I used to play the Baldur's Gate games quite a lot on PC. I absolutely love them. But yeah, I can't. There's some nerdy stuff, and like Sharpies who also does like models. Like I used to play Warhammer 40K. I used to play Warhammer Fantasy. So that's like we used to my one of my friends' girlfriends used to refer to it as war Barbies, right? So you're talking like little miniatures and all sorts of stuff. Oh, yeah, I'm giving my age. I don't care. I'm old. I grew up with tech, and I've done the very techie oriented nerd stuff for a very long time. And then David, a couple things that came into chat real fast. I'll answer them that are not in gaming and more fish related because that's what we should be talking about, right? So David Reed said, I still want some of those earworm rainbows. Mine are basically at the size where I should be mopping them, but I don't have tank space to raise babies. So I'm trying to, how do I put this? Make some solutions around my house so that I can actually raise more fish because I would really like to raise more rainbows up. Despite my work schedule, like there's ways around my work schedule to make that work, and I've done it in the past. I'm out of tank space, so I'm trying to re-engineer some things so that I have tank space again. Shabby Fish, buddy. Best aquarium plant books you recommend? Okay. So there's a couple that I like. I really love the Dennerley like just aquarium plant manual. It's really really good. Karen Randall's most recent book is really good. And let me give you a link to the Karen Randall one if you haven't seen it on Amazon, just because it is really good. Let me see if it'll come on Amazon. Do you think? Yeah, it is Sunken Gardens, and it's cheap too. It's only like $18 US. It has lots of beautiful photography in it, and some good information too. Get the appropriate tagging here. I have to reference that, yes, that is a paid link. I am an affiliate of Amazon, and if you make a purchase using that link, I will receive a small commission. Thanks, FCC. There's another one that, like, if you can get it, it's expensive, though, and that's from Crystal Castleman. Let me see if it'll find it. Of course not. I gotta find this the hard way. One sec. I gotta go into like my channel, my videos, and like hunt this stupid thing down. But when I was hanging out with Mr. Gary Lang, he had this book, and I know I've got a link to it. Wow, there it is. Make sure it still works. It might not. Hey-oh. Okay, so this is the other one. You can get it in English, if I remember correctly. This is Crystal Castleman's Aquarium Plants book, and it is flippin' phenomenal. So this is the one that's translated from German. You can get the original German version if you're like a hardcore collector and can also read German. But this is probably like the most in-depth book about aquarium plants out there is the Crystal Castleman book. It's pretty amazing. But it's expensive, and part of that is because of the where it was published and some shipping stuff. It makes it really, really expensive. So again, those are paid links through Amazon. I'm an Amazon affiliate. I receive a small commission if you make a purchase through one of those links. All the FTC things, blah, blah, blah. Please don't fine me ludicrous amounts of money. I can't afford it. Thanks, FCC. Or I think it's a FTC. Yeah, it's FTC. I'm used to FCC from when I worked in radio. It's like, just don't swear. You'll lose your job and get fined hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're paid minimum wage and you work part-time. Good luck. Oh, radio. Good times. Okay, so I do have, now that Sean's here, I'm gonna put Sean's question up. Because I have a couple that were put up from the community tab. Bam. First question off the community tab. Sean's will be next. This is from Brian. He wasn't sure if he was going to make it. He was wondering how I go about dosing ferts. He was getting into planet tanks and wanted to make up either a solution or dry dose the trace elements. I have and do use Easy Green from time to time, but I also make up my own macro solution. So, the way that I would do dry ferts, if I were doing dry ferts and wasn't a lazy bum and just use Easy Green, it's right there. It's right there. I just use Easy Green. Seriously, I'm lazy. Although I'll tell you guys this, like I got a video coming out shortly about it, but I've recently gotten a bunch of stuff from Brightwell. They've provided me stuff, not sponsored, but provided because they're not paying for it. But so I've been testing some of their shrimp product line and a bunch of their fertilizers, and stuff's real nice. It's really, really nice. And I'm not a affiliate of the Aquarium Co-op anymore, so I can go play around. No, I could anyway. I like Aquarium Co-op, and I like Easy Green. Like I still use this stuff, but I like playing with everything. So it was an opportunity to play with some other stuff. So how I would dose the powdered ferts. One, I would not do powder directly into water. I would always mix it into a solution, and I tend to like doing something to where I can either put it in a pump top, because you can mix it and you can buy pumps off of like Amazon and pump bottles that put out exactly a certain dose of water, and then you just mix it so that is, your 10 or 20 or however many gallons. 10 gallons is usually the easiest. Then you're basically just making your own Easy Green, but you can make a more concentrated solution and make it like 40 gallons a pump if you have lots of big tanks. Or I like doing it so that every milliliter of solution is 10 gallons of water, and then just using a milliliter pipette and going whoop, and letting it just dilute into the water after that, but just having it mixed into a solution to begin with so that the dosing is a lot simpler. Dosing it in liquid instead of powder, that way your fish don't try to eat it and all that kind of nonsense. Much, much simpler. If I'm going to be doing that, YouTube seems to think that Kay saying Sawasser is like a swear word. And it's like, are you gonna show this, or you want to hide that word? thanks YouTube. So I would make a solution and I would dose it. And one of the ways that you can, if you want to have a little bit of fun, is dose it straight into your filter, because that way it's right in the water flow and it's going to disperse the most right away. Or just put it right where the outflow of your filter is, and it's going to push it around away the most. Yeah, so there's that. So like I said, I've been messing with some Brightwell stuff lately. So not Bright Water, Brightwell. I've been talking to both. And I have a video coming out pretty shortly. I think it's next week. If it's not next week, it's the week after. And that's going to be talking about their shrimp line, just as kind of a spoiler, because I've been playing with it. And yeah, all those clear shrimp that I have that are like really good colors now? It's all for one reason. And I'm going to talk about that particular product because I really, really like it, and having now used it for 3 months, I'm just really, really impressed with like how good it is for a shrimp idiot like me to make your shrimp much healthier. So, been fun. So I hope that helps, Brian. Like, just mix it into a solution and then dose it. Make it to a concentration you like. If you want to do it in a pump head, do it in a pump head. You can get that off Amazon super easy. You can just get pre-done bottles, do your mixture, mix your certain amount of water, blah, blah, blah. Or you do it like I do a super concentrated solution, make it so that like 1 or 2 milliliters is your 10 gallons, and then just go in a pipette and dose. Super fast. Okay. Bam. Sean, he's here. The Shelly super fan asks me like every stream what something about Shellys. So I'll try to make it. But if not, my question is, when are you getting more shell dwellers? So you say this, and this is funny because I've had 3 different people inside my club recently all ask for any kind of Shelly, or specifically for the multifasciatus, which is what I keep. And I've been thinking about changing the Shelly I keep. And that's kind of a long-term thing because I really want to redo my Shelly tank as a whole. Like, I want to completely change the tank they're in. I want to go back to using shells instead of using PVC because I want it to look pretty. I haven't cared about like breeding Shellys in mass and being most efficient. I've just cared about like keeping my colony healthy. And like my colony, I've had some of my oldies. My old boys passed away recently. Some of my biggest, like prettiest males and some of my oldest females have all passed away in the last like 2 months. And it was very, very sad. But I've got like, new younger boys and male and females in there that are all doing great. It was just like, that old grumpy Gus went away. I like the gold. I do like the gold ocelotus a lot, but I really like those ones Jimmy got too. So I actually kind of want to do the more. There's the more standard ocelotus has like kind of a blue shimmer to them, and I really like that fish a lot. But so I debated selling off my current multifasciatus colony. And letting some of the other people in the club that really, because there's been like 3 different people in the club in the last month that have all been asking about Shellys, and I've thought about selling my colony because it's not as big as it used to be. It's still like 40 or something fish in there, but I thought about selling my current colony, splitting it and letting it go to a couple different people, and letting them get into Shellys, and then ripping that tank down, cleaning it out because it's got like the scale from like Tang buffer because my water's like an acid bath and I have to buffer it and all that kind of stuff, and getting the tank cleaned up, and then changing him into like either one custom built acrylic that would be like a frag style tank, so much shorter and bigger footprint, or getting like a 60 low boy or a 50 low boy as the base tank because it's a little simpler. It kind of depends. New job gave me a nice little pay raise so I can do some kind of fun tanks in the future. I'm not saying that there's going to be a bunch of 150 gallons showing up, but I'm saying there's probably going to be some 150 gallons showing up in time, in like a year. But I got to make space. So I've been debating selling my current colony, and then basically when I can redo the Shelly tank I want, because I love keeping Shellys. I really love that little fish. They're so both silly and fun at the same time, but I want to do it a little different. So like what I have in my head, and I mentioned how I had this thing a little earlier in the stream. I want to do kind of like how you do a paludarium tank, right? Where you have the high back, but a shallower water system. But I want a big footprint, and I want like a huge rock structure with like ferns and stuff, like how you would do that kind of tank. So using some African ferns and things like that that are out of the water. So I have this like lush green vegetation up top, out of the water, with roots going down to act as my nitrate filtration naturally. And then making a nice around that rock structure, making this lovely big shell bed to keep Shellys. So this has been like a plan in my head for the last, I think, 4 months of like what my end game is for a Shelly tank and how I want it to look. I've got this picture in my head of how I want it to look, and I don't know if I can pull it off perfectly, but I've got a good idea I can. And what I really want is a different Shelly than the multifasciatus. I want something a little. How do I put this? I want something that's got a little different color. And I don't need like gold ocelotus. Like I like gold ocelotus. I think they're really cool fish, but they're also a little more aggressive. I love how like peaceful and chill the multifasciatus are. Um, ugh. That feeling like when your nose wants to drip on you is the worst. Stupid coworker getting me sick. Anyway, um, so this is what I want to do. There are two problems. Problem one, what do I do with my current colony? So yeah, I'm just not telling you. This has been slowly formulating. So originally, I just wanted to do like a low boy with shells and just give him a bigger footprint, a lot like Jason Primetime Aquatics has. Because I saw his and I was just like, I love that. I love the way that looks. I just I want to do a different tank than my 40 breeder, and I want to get away from PVC again and go back to shells. But I don't know that I want to put Shelly's. I don't know that I want to put shells in my current tank and just let my current colony like re-inhabit shells again. I probably will if I choose not to sell them, but I've been thinking about selling them because part of raising fish is like paring down some of my things that I'm not actively raising, like trying to raise babies for. So like they just raise their own, right? And I can get Shelly's kind of at any time, and I want something a little cooler, a little crazier. I really like those ones Jimmy got. And I'm really jealous, but Jimmy got them, so I don't know that I should get them too. I don't want to. I don't want to be like someone else who's like, I got this and it looks really cool, and then like four other people all get it. You know, I don't want to do that. I want to have something a little more me. There's man, Aquaballs. You're about to become Sean's like best friend. I don't know if you know that. Like Sean's like the Shelly super fan for my channel. And I've been thinking about doing like the blue ocelotus. Okay, so this is like a weird pseudo conversation in chat. Sorry, chat. For the rest of you, between Sean and I, aren't the Katos like a little more aggressive though? Like I really want that peaceful fish. I love how peaceful and chill. Like I haven't debated. The other thing I've been debating is getting a taller tank and having the ability to do was it Burchardii at the same time? Is that right? You can do Burchardii with Shelly's, I think. I'm not a big like Tang person. I just know Shelly's and I love Shelly's. But I kind of want something with a little color to it. I like the Similis. I think they're cool, but they're still like that just kind of tan and white. And I want probably blue ocelotus. Like you guys know I'm a sucker for blue, so I got to figure out what Shelly I want. I got to figure out if I'm getting rid of my current colony and then turning that space where they're at into some raising tanks. So that I can raise up some extra rainbows, and then whenever I can do my garage, which the long battle, hopefully in a year, I don't know, something like that. It might, I gotta, it'll depend on how the new job goes, but, basically then building, my end goal for my garage, whenever I can do it, is to have a couple of racks that are designed for raising babies and breeding rainbows, and then some big tanks designed basically purely for plants. But then also have like a display, because my garage is kind of big, having basically the display section, and that's like a bunch of basically custom built 150-gallon acrylics for various rainbow species, and then one specific Shelly-oriented tank as a display tank, because I do love Shelly's, and I love the way they interact. They live in their shells. The whole way that they live is just super cool to me. And then I will eventually have one saltwater tank, just one, and that will be literally just clownfish and tons of anemones or bubble tips or something that they can host inside of, because I love that interaction of how clownfish host inside of anemones. It's a lot like why I love Shelly's is the way that they live inside the shells and the way that they live in their colonies. It's a thing that I find very interesting in how nature interacts, and being able to have that in my home is like super appealing to me. So it's kind of, do I want to sell my current Shelly's and let some other people that want to get into Shelly's have my colony, take them over, take care of them? I know a couple of these people that are looking for them. They're all pretty good fish keepers. They're they're not dumb. They're not going to ruin it. Shellies are pretty tough little fish. And then moving to a bigger Shelly tank longer down the road and getting a different species that I haven't kept before, that has a different look, a different color, and gets me a little more interested. So there's that. And aqua balls, man, LA is not that far from Seattle. I'm just saying. Like, I know Sean's a little farther out, but ain't that hard moving some fish from California to Washington. I'm just saying. Just saying. But yeah, I really K Holiday saying this, and like, ecosystems rather than aquariums. I think about most of my tanks as an ecosystem. And this is where this is probably gonna be like the last rant for the stream, but so, like, an example, a lot of people will say, and I'll even give this advice, like, your best bet is to try and build a system where your algae control isn't a living being. But there's living beings out there that are designed just to eat algae, and they live off of just eating algae. And I will, when I have big allergy problems, like because I hurt my back and I can't properly maintain my tanks for a month and a half, like now, I'll go and buy some Siamese reticulated SAEs as like little bitty babies and just like go hog wild. And once you get big, I'm fishing your butts out of there and moving you somewhere else. Like, that's how I'm fixing part of my algae problem I'm dealing with in my guppy mansion. Is like, I got these teeny tiny, they look like little just sticks of SAEs, and man, there's 3 of them in that tank, and they are loving life because there's algae everywhere. They graze 24/7 and don't stop. But they live in harmony inside of all these plants. They help clean up algae, and they're not really competing for food with my guppies. The only problem is when they get big, they'll start eating fry, and then I got to get them out. But there's I want to create over time systems that I don't plan to take most of my systems apart unless I'm literally just moving it to a better tank, right? So if I'm moving rainbows from tank to tank, it's because I'm giving them more room, or it's because I'm giving them a better environment. I look at things as an ecosystem because I'm not an aquascaper, for one. I don't make super pretty looking tanks. I try, but mostly I just like let plants do their thing. And I care more about the natural interactions of fish that would not live together in the world, and plants that would never be around these fish. Because most of our fish don't come from areas that are heavily planted, and yet we'll create a tank like this one in the back that has all these plants everywhere. These fish, these are a river rainbow. They all the plant life they've ever seen is on the sides of their water system. Their water system is just like rocks and sand, and that's it. But they live happily inside these plants, and we manufacture ecosystems. But we can manufacture an ecosystem that does provide a very healthy living environment for multiple creatures that can work in tandem together. So we can have that pretty fish, but we can have that maintenance fish in there too, like SAEs and your hill stream loaches and all that, and your autosynclus. Like, I have autosynclus in every tank because I appreciate that fish, and not because I'm like, they're going to clean up all my surface algae. Like, you can look, there's surface algae all over this tank that I need to clean by hand. But it's about like how they interact on getting the bioslime and keeping it young and healthy, because they eat it constantly. So it constantly has to regrow. All that biofilm has to regrow. And it's on the plants, and it keeps the bacteria more healthy and all this kind of stuff. Like, you can play this balancing game where you create an ecosystem that would not exist in actual nature, but can exist in our home and in our care. And by doing it, can long-term create a healthier environment for those fish that we want, or shrimp, if you're doing shrimp, that you want to keep. It's all about, like, my mentality is, it's all about figuring out how to create a system that will balance itself in one way or another. That's like how I approach aquariums. I look at them as ecosystems, not as aquascapes. I'm trying to give my animals the best living environment I can, my plants the best living environment I can, all that. Like, I'm not afraid of snails. I have snails everywhere. Why? Because in any place where you have water, there are probably snails. They live everywhere. So why not have them? Like, yeah, they might not look as cool as something else, but you know what? If you're really good at what you're doing, you can keep you can keep your snail population in a kind of a check and still get the benefit of having snails in your tank. And it's important. Just, don't overfeed. That's really what it comes down to. They won't go crazy on you. So to answer a couple questions that are in chat that are kind of surrounding this discussion. What's the difference between a reticulated SAE and a regular SAE? So reticulated SAEs are an all-silver body with a little black dot right before their tail. And then they have kind of like a cross-hatch pattern where the standard SAE is silver with a big, long black stripe that goes from the nose all the way to the tail. A normal SAE is going to get upwards of about 6 inches. And as they get over about 2.5 to 3 inches, they will almost ignore algae entirely. They transition to needing more protein because they're getting ready to spawn and to breed. And so they'll sometimes nibble at plants looking for little bits of algae because they're advantageous, but for the most part, they're looking for like microcrustaceans and biofilm and that kind of stuff, protein sources, not algae. Reticulated SAEs cap out at about 3.5 inches. They're only going to get yay long. They don't get nearly as big, and they will voraciously hunt for algae the entire time. Now, when they get big enough, if they have a small protein source like shrimp, guppy fry, things like that, they'll eat them. They are advantageous. They will do so. But they will eat algae the entire time. So if you have a tank full of rainbows and you can get reticulated SAEs as your algae control, get reticulated SAEs. Normal SAEs are great when they're tiny, but once they get past like 2 inches, they're useless. Reticulated SAEs will just keep eating that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that's why I like them more, because I have, in my experience, watched them be voracious algae eaters no matter how big they are. Sean and Natural Aquariums are both taking off. Take care. We've got a little bit left in the stream, so I'm going to keep rambling and answer a couple more questions, as well as I can, at least. So that helps. So Zen Ginger, any idea on how to get rid of staghorn algae? Oh, God. So... you're worried about tiny shrimplets. So what you can do is you can manually remove the staghorn algae. One thing that shrimp in general are pretty good about is you can some reticulated SAEs will get lazy if they know they don't have to eat algae, but if you're cautious enough with your feeding, they'll still eat algae. Anyway, if you pull your algae out, right, and it still has your shrimplets attached, all you do is you take it just a little bit over the water so that it's out of the water, and then put it right back in the water, and they'll usually swim off. Shrimp are pretty smart to know that when they get out of water, something's gone really bad, and the second they touch water again, swim the heck away. So you can get that algae and literally just have it carefully, pull it just out of the water, let them know, and then dunk it right back in, wait a few seconds and watch, and your little shrimplets all start swimming off, and then you can start pulling it out. And it's a slower process, but that's the safest way to remove it manually and also help get your shrimp off and safely keep as many of your little shrimplets and your big shrimps alive as possible. Shrimp are very, very smart with their natural instinct is like, I'm out of water. Something is really freaking wrong. I'm in water. Get the heck away from whatever I'm sitting on because it might not be in water again after this. Shrimp are smart enough to know that. Ghost shrimp eat a little bit of algae, but not a lot. Like they're so small that they can only eat so much. It's kind of like Amanos are the most notorious for eating algae, but they're only so big, so they can only eat so much compared to a lot of the other organisms out there. It's kind of like, do they eat algae? In small amounts, but not like don't expect them to eat a lot of hair algae. Yes, and Kate, that is correct. Rabbit snails are becoming endangered in their native habitats, which is a good reason to keep rabbit snails because they're super freaking cool. I got outbid on some rabbit snails at my last auction because I'm a stickler and only want to pay so much for certain things, and it went above what it would cost me to buy through a friend of mine. So I was just like, man, I'll just buy through that friend eventually. Who keeps them? Um, but yeah, there are actually there's a lot of things that are having trouble in their natural habitats, and it is because of hobbyists like us that they actually keep thriving. So it's important. Chevy, what is your thoughts on using Bacter AE as biofilm for fish? If you mean like for Amanos, or not Amanos, but autocinclus, or similar fish that like reticulated hillstream loaches, a lot of those things, great. It works really, really well. And you really only have to dose it like once a month in small amounts. Yeah, Corvus Oskin recently put a post up that he uses it for like all sorts of things that he keeps between his shrimp and like all sorts of other stuff. Yeah, it's a great way to just establish biofilm. It's a really, really good product. There are some other. Um, Brightwell has something similar that's a liquid that does the same thing. So you can do that too if you're having trouble getting Bacter AE. Sometimes it can be hard to source. I bought a bunch from Eric Lucas recently, and I love that stuff because I use it where my zebra autocinclus are. I use it where my shrimp are, and most of my other tanks have enough like stuff in them that I'm not worried about my autos. But if I was ever like, I don't know if my autos are getting enough to eat, I'd just dose that in there. Easy peasy. Do it like once a week. Nice and simple. Zen Ginger, you're so thanks. I gotta thank you. You're being awesome. Definitely don't need to do that. Like super chats, never required. Always appreciated, but never required. Da, 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 da. Hair algae on stem plants. Is it common? Yes. What to do? You have to identify why you're getting the hair algae, whether that's overfeeding, too much light, one of your nutrients is out of balance, whatever that may be. That's a slow process. We can figure it out though. We can talk. You're welcome to shoot me an email, Barbara, and I'll gladly help walk you through it. And then all you do is you play this game of just first you manually remove it. You're gonna make one adjustment and you're gonna monitor. And then if it keeps coming back, okay, that's probably the wrong adjustment. Make a different adjustment, monitor, remove, adjustment, monitor. And then once you see it's not growing as fast or not growing back at all, you've identified the problem, and we just work on that from there to minimize the likelihood of that algae being there in the first place. That's how I do it with pretty much every tank I've got. So we're really close to the end of the stream, and I made a promise at the very start of the stream for those of you who stuck around long enough. So if you'll give me a short minute, I'm going to go unleash my hound out of his quarantine, and I'll go bring Papolimo on stream to end the stream. So if you guys are cool with that, give me a second. I'm going to put up this handsome picture of my boy. Bam! Look at that boy. He's so cute. And I'm going to go get said boy, and we'll put him on camera for a couple minutes. And we'll babble until he like wiggles out of my arms and won't let me hold him anymore. I'll be right back. Hold on. Okay. Oh. Hi. So this is my boy. He's a lot less wiggly than he was a few months ago. Is that you on camera? He's just waking up. So this is to answer, this is a Pembroke Welsh Corgi. So he has the little docked tail. He is not a cardigan. This is my boy Papa Limo. He's just waking up from a nap. So he's a little sleepy. Oh, yeah. You handsome bugger. But yeah, this is my boy. He's as cute as can be. Hi. Yeah. Is that you there? He's trying to figure out, like, what the mic is. Yeah, that's the microphone. So he's, how old are you now? How old are you now? He's almost 4 months. He's just shy. I think it's like a week till he's 4 months. But, he's grown up quite a bit. He's a very healthy boy. His best friend in the whole wide world is like a 90-pound husky. This little itty-bitty potato boy. It's like a football. Oh, yeah. But this is Papalimo, which is Papalimo, and that's named for a character out of Final Fantasy XIV, who's a big favorite of mine. Zen Ginger, you're very sweet. Thank you. That's a doggo. But this guy's been. This is the other thing occupying a lot of my time. In that, you know, I spend a lot of time in the mornings and evenings playing with him. He's very, very smart. He's learned all sorts of tricks. He's a very good boy. And now that he's getting a little older and he's not quite as wiggly, he's a very, very loving boy. He likes being held and kind of snuggling. His favorite thing in the world right now is like being allowed to come up onto the bed and hang out on the bed because he can't get up there because he's short. He's a corgi. They're not very tall. But he's a very, very sweet dog. And most corgis are. Corgis are like super smart. They're herding dogs. They're very loyal. They're very kind, and they're very cuddly. It just takes a little time. They got to get older. When they're small puppies, they just want to wiggle everywhere. So yeah, we don't actually use a quick name for him other than I'll call him Son. But yeah, this is my boy. But he's quite good. He's very responsive to his own name, even though like for dog training, usually you want a short name. We'll sometimes refer to him as our Scion or our Adventurer because that's the character in the game. You don't want to sit very much longer, do you? He probably has to use the bathroom here soon. But this is my little boy, and I'm going to try to get him in some videos here and there when he wants to be good and quiet. He's still in the chew everything phase. Do you want to sniff it? Yeah, go ahead. You can sniff the microphone. What made me decide on this breed? So, I bought him specifically for my lady. So I've always had shelter dogs. I love herding dogs in general. I've had lots of like border collie mixes when I was young. Oh, yeah, you're starting to get a little wiggly, huh? Yeah, I want to go check things out, Dad. Give me a sec. Let me set him down so he can run around. Okay. Why did I select that breed? So I don't have my lady and I don't have the space to have a bigger dog. While I have a house, I don't have a very large yard, and we're like between my back and my knees. I can't like go running with a dog or something like that, so I can't give them like really really good exercise. I love the herding dogs in general because they're smart, they're loving, they're very very obedient, and a lot of times they can kind of entertain themselves. With you got to do some stuff with them. Don't get me wrong, but like I used to have two border collie mixes that would herd themselves together. The two of them would run together, my two girls, and run along the outside fence and just do laps and laps and laps and laps. And this boy will do similar. Like I'll take him downstairs and he's got a little playpen for like when we're eating, because we don't want him to like beg for food and try and sniff food off the table. We're trying to teach him not to do that, even though some of our family friends are like, no, it's fine. We let our dogs do that all the time. It's like, I don't want him jumping off the food, but like if I am done eating and I save him like a little piece of steak or something, or a little piece of meat that's I know is safe, like I've carved away a chunk for him. Bark. Oh, you're fine. He's gonna be loud now because I'm not down there playing with him. You're okay. Anyway, so I picked a herding dog because he's smart. There's also an attention hog. Yeah, hey, calm down, bud. It's okay. Come here. I'll bring a hand over so I can pet you. Like you had to use the bathroom, but now you wanna scream your brains out at me. Be a good boy. Anyway, he's so loud, so loud. Son, come here. Come here. Anyway, so to end the stream, I picked him mostly because they're small, they're affectionate, they're loving, they're very, very smart, which is all really good for my girlfriend. And mostly to help her out. I wanted a just really good companion for her because she has a condition that makes it hard for her to do a lot of things. So I can't talk too much about that, but we'll just go at that. And this is, they're relatively independent and smart, which is a nice thing about herding dogs. So made it kind of simple. For me, yeah, he's a very strong barker. Corgis are loud, but he actually is pretty quiet unless he like really, really wants attention or is being barked on or trampled on by a bigger dog. He'll bark pretty loud, but he's just super good. And like I've never had a non-shelter dog, so I've never had like a non-mixed dog. And my girlfriend has always loved corgis and wanted a corgi in her life. She's never had a puppy. She's only had adult dogs. So I went through a friend and did kind of a process to find a breeder for corgis. It took me like 6 months to find one. It was a very, very long process. I actually talk about this a little bit on the Aquarius podcast also as well. We talk about the boy as well in the process of finding him. But he's been a treat. Eventually we'll probably get... I wish I could show you this. He'll jump up lightly on his hind legs and then come back down. And then jump up on his hind legs and hold and come down. Because he's trying to get to play. He really wants to play. He's been in for a nap. Now it's playtime. So, with that being said, guys, got a little piece of his fur on when he was in my face. Hey, come on. Come here. Oh my gosh. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have a fantastic leap day. And as always, stay awesome. I'm going to go deal with this very, very loud dog. Take care, guys. Have a good weekend. Bark, bark. Yeah, I know. Bark, bark.